Hey everybody, we're talking about writing an introduction to your literary essay today. And so let's get started by discussing what makes a good literary essay. The first thing that you really need to think about is trusting your gut and slowing down and noticing the things that are giving you pause while you're reading. When you are noticing something, whether it's a pattern that's emerging or a break in the pattern, or a particularly beautiful description of something, or a disconcerting description of something, when you're noticing a character change or be vulnerable, when you're noticing the author really holding up a mirror to real life and telling you what it means to be a human being, these are all important moments that you should be stopping and reflecting on, because these are the moments that you will pull from in order to make your best analysis. What else can we be doing? Well, you need to think about this type of writing as an argument, because you need to take a stance and you need to defend or prove that stance as you're writing. In order for that to happen, one of the biggest things is you need to have a debatable thesis. If your thesis is basically just true and accepted by everybody, then you're not really adding anything interesting to the conversation. So an example of a thesis that sounds like that, that's poorly crafted, is Shakespeare's Hamlet is a play of a young man who seeks revenge. Well, that's just a retelling of a synopsis. It doesn't add anything. Something better would be Hamlet experiences internal conflict because he's in love with his mother. Not everybody agrees on this take of Hamlet, by the way, but it does set you up as the person writing the essay for something to grab onto and really try to convince people of. Okay, others. This top one is a good example of where a lot of kids go wrong. We're just going to look at the first sentence of it. Spirituality means different things to different people. This is kind of like, don't judge a book by its cover. Things aren't always what they seem. Life isn't black and white. You have to live for today. You have to live for tomorrow. It's just wishy-washy. It's not brave. It's not taking a point of view that is defendable. So another way to do that would be better is at the bottom. Lear, Romans, and Zen each view the soul as the center of human personality. Okay, so that is taking a stance on three different works, drawing a connection between them, and making an opinion about it. Next, after you've kind of more or less decided where your essay is headed, you need an effective lead. That lead needs to match in tone to the topic of your essay. So you would not want to be silly or kind of jokey in an essay that is about Elie Wiesel's Night, for example. That would not be appropriate. Ways to begin, I feel like you all probably know by now. Startling fact or a bit of information, dialogue between characters, a meaningful quotation, a universal idea, or a rich and vivid description of setting. These are all good places to begin if you're not sure where to start. Okay. So here I've assembled a selection of various college essays for you. Some of them are more successful than others, and they're in varying degrees of shambles. You can see that, for example, I added on to the title by hand here, and my teacher also told me that a bird pooped on it. So don't know what that means, but looking at the way that this is set up, you can see that there is a verse, like a song up at the top. And then in the first paragraph, I kind of give context to who was singing that song and what it means. And then I narrow the writing from there into what that particular scene has to do with the rest of the book as a whole. And I narrow that even more into the opinion that the main character is sort of like a symbol for orphan children at the time that needed to be treated better. All right, next. This one is, I think, maybe a little bit more relatable, a little bit more resembling the type of thing that we would write. So let's read this. It says, there are certain phrases in the English language that are used with such frequency that oftentimes their literal meanings are forgotten. No one rushes to help you when the cat's got your tongue, and although you may not be alone when you realize you've seen the light, it doesn't mean everyone else has too. However, this is not true in Truth Serum by Bernard Cooper. In this short story, actual light, its appearance and sound, represent moments of self-revelation to the main character. As he struggles with coming to terms with his homosexuality, light stands for the undeniable truth of his desires. It is by seeing and hearing the light that he accepts himself and who he is. Okay, so what's key here is that we have the what of the story, and in that case it is that he's realizing that he's gay, and then the how is how the writer is developing that realization, which is through this use of light and imagery of light. So you should be looking to include those two components when you're crafting a thesis statement. What is it that's important about what you read? What is your stance? And then how has the author made that happen on the page? Okay, here we have another approach. This is a quote from May Sarton that is about writing autobiography. And so it's a person who writes in the same genre as Tobias Wolff, who wrote This Boy's Life, and she's making a comment about what it's like and how it's about being vulnerable and kind of being willing to assess yourself sort of brutally. And from there, I narrow that into actually the whole first paragraph is sort of like a metaphor for that by comparing it to looking at a person looking at themselves naked in the mirror. And then it goes into, you know, how does that translate when someone's writing? And what's notable here is that this is an example of how you might go about writing a longer paper, because it takes me about till the end of the page to get to the actual thesis. This is a less successful paper. This one is about Frankenstein. And the thing that is not good here is the thesis statement, because essentially what it says is whether life is given to scientific design or to a human being, intent must be of the most benevolent nature, or the creator must be prepared to suffer unwanted consequences. Responsibility is the key to the creation's successfulness and to the creator's future happiness. All it really does is set me up to say, here's what happened to the monster, that's sad. Here's what happened to the creator of the monster, that's sad. Sad, 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 big list of sad. Not particularly effective writing. Not so risky either, not taking a stance that is novel or interesting, adding something new. So you need to be thinking about relating to, your thesis has got to relate to the theme. That theme is rooted in conflict. Okay, what happened to your character that made them change and made them experience challenge? And then what did they learn from it? Or what do we learn from that person's challenge? And how did the author accomplish those goals? What was part of the craft that did that? We've got some more examples here, but I'm going to keep things moving. One is from A Tale of Two Cities, which hopefully you'll read at some point. And then here is one about To Kill a Mockingbird. Let's examine this one a little more closely. So we've got the debatable topic represented in red, plus the theme represented in purple, plus how the author used the craft represented in green. Let's read it. Caring for people in isolation is a responsibility to which all civilized societies must tend for trauma prevention, as evidenced in the characterization of Boo Radley, Dill Harris, and Mayella Ewell in Harper Lee's novel To Kill a Mockingbird. Okay, slowing down, looking at that in a little more detail. I'm taking a stance on a topic. The topic is people who have been isolated. The stance is that communities, civilized society, needs to take responsibility for these people. In other words, in my essay, I'll say, like, you can't just say, oh, that's the Ewell's way. That's not good enough, because then bad things happen, like trauma. So we're looking to prevent trauma by taking responsibility for people who have been isolated. Who are those people? How does Lee tell us and develop this idea? She does it through Boo Radley, through Dale Harris, through Mayella Ewell, all people who have experienced isolation, yes, differently from one another, but still they've experienced it. So they're all the parts together. And here's one more. I think most of you have read Lord of the Flies. So this is a whole paragraph, so putting it all together. For centuries, philosophers have debated the question of whether man is innately evil. Okay, so broad statement, grabs you, pulls you in. William Golding poses this question in his realistic novel, Lord of the Flies. Set on a tropical island during World War II, the novels are getting background information here, and no adults survive, blah, blah, blah. Okay, getting down here to the thesis. The boy's evolving relationship with the conch. Okay, so that is the how. What is the author doing? An evolution of the boy's relationship to the show. Illustrating the theme that, what is the what of the story? Humans, when removed from the pressures of civilized authority, will become evil. Okay, so the person who's writing this is taking the stance that this theme is revealed through this device of the conch shell that they all use. All right, so again, the big things are, just to remember, you need a debatable topic, and you need to relate it to the bigger idea of the work, which is the theme. What is the overall purpose of this writing? A work can have multiple themes. Okay, so it doesn't always have to deal with the entire story. It can deal with a very important aspect, like a subplot. And then also, how did the author accomplish that? How did they make us see it? All right, please make sure that if you've got questions, you talk to me and give me a chance to give you feedback so that you feel confident about what you're doing. Thanks.